Elizabeth Clayton, called Ellie by friends and family, stood by the window, watching her 8-month-old daughter Emma napping under the Japanese maple tree in the garden. The gentle May breeze rocked the baby's bassinet, filling Ellie's chest with a sense of contented happiness. She had once worked as a buyer at an upscale New York department store, but now devoted her days to childcare. As she sipped her coffee, she was certain it had been the most important decision of her life. Is Emma still sleeping? Ellie turned to see her husband Michael emerging from his office. His gentle brown eyes showed signs of fatigue, yet they were filled with affection. His job as an engineer at an IT company kept him busy, sometimes tying him up in lengthy video conferences even on remote work days. Still, he always made time for his family and readily helped with baby care. Yes, she finally fell asleep. She was crying all night yesterday, so I hope she sleeps soundly today. Michael walked over to the window and put his arm around Ellie's shoulders. You're doing such a wonderful job. Emma is a lucky child. Ellie smiled, leaning against her husband. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by the ringtone of her cell phone in the living room. Looking at the screen, she saw it was from her sister Vanessa. Ellie sighed. It's Vanessa again, she said before answering. I'm sure it's about that fancy baby crib. The conversation with Vanessa went exactly as Ellie had predicted. Vanessa worked as a manager at an upscale brand store downtown and always kept an eye on the latest trends and status symbols. She was asking again about the baby crib she had given to Ellie and Michael. Ellie, are you using that crib yet? I want to see photos. Upload them to Instagram. Ellie closed her eyes, summoning her patience. Not yet, Vanessa. Emma still seems to prefer the bassinet. Still. At 8 months? She must have gotten so big. The elite sleeper can be used from 6 months to 3 years. It's really popular among celebrity moms. I know, but Mom is concerned too. She says it's so disappointing that such an expensive gift isn't being used. Vanessa's voice had a tone of reproach. Ellie looked out the window, narrowing her eyes. Vanessa, can't you just let us go at our own pace? After hanging up, Ellie sat down on the sofa and looked up at Michael with a tired expression. Same conversation again? Michael asked as he sat beside her. Yes. Vanessa and Mom seem to think that not using what they've chosen for us is a personal insult. Family relationships had always been complicated. Her mother Carol, a former high school teacher, was actively involved in local social circles after retirement. She always valued appearances and worried about how others perceived her. Her father Thomas had a mild temperament but tended to follow his wife and Vanessa's opinions. Ellie was always considered the practical one and sometimes criticized for being too plain. I got an email from your mother yesterday, Michael said. They're coming this weekend. Your father too. Ellie frowned. Really? She didn't tell me anything. Maybe they're coming to see that baby crib, Michael said jokingly, but they both knew the truth. Ellie felt a headache coming on. Her family was loving, but sometimes they didn't respect her choices. Especially her mother and Vanessa couldn't understand Ellie's tendency to prioritize practicality and safety, and always advised her to be more stylish. The phone rang again. This time it was Ellie's best friend Rachel. Rachel was a former colleague from when Ellie worked at the department store, and one of the few people with whom she had maintained a friendship. Rachel. I was just wanting to talk to you, Ellie said with relief in her voice. What's wrong? You sound tired. It's my family. They're putting pressure on me again about that baby crib. The elite sleeper. You're still not using it. Ellie hesitated. Actually, I don't plan to use it. Why not? I'll explain, but I'd rather talk about it in person. Okay. How about lunch tomorrow? At that cafe? Thanks, that would be great. After hanging up, Ellie turned to Michael. From her expression, he could tell something was bothering her. Everything okay? He asked. Ellie sank back into the sofa and said, carefully choosing her words, there's something I need to tell you about that baby crib. Just then, they heard Emma crying from the garden. Michael stood up, saying, let's talk later, and headed outside. Ellie watched him go, feeling torn between her desire to avoid conflict with her family and her determination to keep her daughter safe. Perhaps talking with Rachel tomorrow would clarify what she should do. At least Rachel would understand. 3 months ago, Ellie's baby shower had been held at her parents' spacious suburban home. Pastel pink and blue balloons swayed in the garden, and delicate finger foods were beautifully arranged on tables. Amidst gathered friends and relatives, Ellie smiled as she greeted everyone, cradling her growing belly. Then came time for gifts. Finally, we have something special, Carol announced as Thomas and Vanessa brought in a large box. This is from all of us. Ellie carefully opened the wrapping paper and found an elegant baby crib inside. The Elite Sleeper, with its glossy white wood and delicate gold decorations, was undeniably beautiful. It's perfect for you, sis. Vanessa said with a broad smile. It matches your minimal interior too, isn't it lovely? Carol nodded. It's very popular among celebrity moms right now. That Hollywood actress uses it too. It's a luxury item, so be grateful. Ellie noticed that the price tag had been removed from the box, but she knew this brand's reputation. It probably cost more than half her monthly salary. Thank you, really. She stammered. Thank you for such a lovely gift. But deep down, she felt uncomfortable. Why hadn't Vanessa and her parents consulted her and Michael about the simple, practical crib they had already chosen? After the party, while Michael was loading gifts into the car, Vanessa grabbed Ellie's arm. Thanks for pretending to be happy in front of everyone, she whispered. I could tell from your face that you didn't like it at first. But trust me, this will make you the envy of other moms. Ellie forced a smile. I was just surprised. Thank you, really. Back home, Ellie read the instruction manual for the baby crib. There were many descriptions of the luxury materials and innovative design, with phrases like, the ultimate sleep experience chosen by celebrity children appearing repeatedly. However, there was surprisingly little information about safety and material details. Something bothering you? Michael peered over her shoulder at the manual. I don't know, Ellie frowned. Something feels off. She took out her smartphone and searched for Elite Sleeper baby crib reviews. Many photos of celebrities and influencers appeared, all proudly showcasing their babies with the same crib. But she found almost no practical reviews of the product itself. The next day, Ellie met Rachel at the cafe. It certainly looks beautiful, Rachel said, looking at the baby crib photo on Ellie's smartphone. But it prioritizes appearance over practicality, Rachel shrugged. It's strange that there's so little detailed information about safety. You think so too? Ellie sighed with relief. I thought I was just being neurotic. You're a mother. You have every right to be neurotic. That weekend, Ellie and Michael assembled the baby crib. The parts from the box had a luxurious feel, and the assembly instructions were clear. However, Ellie noticed an unnaturally strong smell from the completed bed. Doesn't this smell strange? She asked Michael. Michael sniffed it. It has a bit of a new product smell. But it'll probably fade away. Ellie wasn't convinced. She held Emma and brought her near the crib. Strangely, the usually calm Emma suddenly became irritable and began rubbing her face with her small hands. What's wrong, Emma? Ellie observed her baby with concern. Small red spots began appearing on Emma's cheeks. Ellie quickly moved her daughter away from the crib and took her to another room. After a few minutes, the rash began to fade, and Emma calmed down. The next day, Ellie conducted an experiment. When she brought Emma near the baby crib again, the same reaction occurred. This time she even started coughing. Ellie immediately moved the baby away, feeling deep anxiety. "Michael," she called her husband. "There's something wrong with this bed. Emma seems to be having an allergic reaction." Michael was skeptical at first, but changed his attitude when Ellie showed him photos on her smartphone. Emma's red rash near the crib, and her normal skin went away from it. "What could be causing this?" he frowned. "I don't know. But I think we should stop using it." That afternoon, Ellie secretly purchased another baby crib from a local children's store. She chose one that was simple, practical, and had clearly displayed safety standards. She set it up in another room and started putting Emma to sleep there. The baby showed no problems. However, the issue was the relationship with her family. "How's the crib? Does Emma like it?" Messages from Vanessa came almost daily. "It's lovely, thank you," Ellie continued to lie. "Send photos." The demand came from her mother as well. Ellie made up excuses. "She's sleeping right now. Let me tidy up first. I'll take a nice photo this weekend." And today, Michael had come home early from work and sat Ellie down on the sofa. "I want you to be honest," he said with a serious expression. "Why aren't you using that luxury baby crib? I know you're hiding another bed because of concern for family. But why?" Ellie took a deep breath. "See for yourself," she smiled. "Try putting the baby to sleep." With a confused expression, Michael picked up Emma and approached the elite sleeper. As Emma began to flail her little arms and legs, and the moment Michael tried to place her in the bed, her skin began to redden and swell with intense coughing. Michael immediately picked Emma up, his face pale. "My goodness," he said in a trembling voice. "Something is definitely wrong." Ellie took Emma from him and gently rubbed her back. "This is what I wanted to tell you. Something from the bed is causing Emma to have an allergic reaction." Michael's expression became determined. "We need to investigate. This isn't just a sensitivity issue. It could be something serious." Ellie looked at her husband and felt true relief for the first time. At least he would be on her side. But she knew there would be conflict with her family ahead. "Your mom and the others are coming next week, right?" she asked. Michael nodded. "We'll have to explain. Do you think they'll understand?" "I don't know," Michael answered honestly. "But Emma's health comes first. That's for sure." Holding Emma close, Ellie wavered between anxiety about what was to come and determination to protect her child's safety. The next morning, Michael called his company to take time off. Ellie showed a relieved expression at his determination. "How should we investigate?" Ellie asked, sitting at the kitchen table and drinking coffee. Michael opened his laptop and said, "First, we need to identify what this is. Let's collect samples from the bed." Ellie nodded and said, "Rachel's friend Natalie is a medical journalist. I'll try contacting her." Michael began carefully examining the baby crib. He collected small samples from areas with particularly strong odors. Ellie was moved by Michael's serious expression. Until yesterday, she had worried that she might be overreacting, but now she felt they were tackling the problem together. "My college friend David is a pediatrician," Michael said. "He might be able to arrange tests." Ellie picked up her smartphone and searched for elite sleeper health issues. The first results were mostly corporate press releases and positive reviews. But after scrolling through several pages, she found several social media links with "content has been removed" messages. "This is strange," she frowned. "There are lots of deleted posts." Michael peeked at her screen. "That's suspicious. Something might be being covered up. That afternoon, Ellie met with Rachel and her friend Natalie. Natalie was a journalist who had written numerous articles about the safety of children's products. Natalie said, taking a sip of coffee, "Actually, I think I've heard something about this brand." She opened her laptop and began checking her files. "Here it is," she suddenly exclaimed. Last year, a blogger deleted all her content after posting a critical review of the Elite Sleeper. "I found it strange and tried to contact her, but..." And? Ellie leaned forward. She didn't want to talk. It seemed like there was some legal issue. The three women looked at each other. "So, you're saying someone is suppressing information about known problems?" Rachel said. "It's possible," Natalie chose her words carefully. "I'll investigate further." 2 days later, Michael received a call from his friend David. His voice was filled with tension. "Mike, the test results for your samples are in. I'm afraid it's not good news." Michael switched to speaker mode so Ellie could hear too. "What did you find?" Ellie asked anxiously. "High concentrations of formaldehyde and a type of flame retardant that was banned several years ago. They seem to be particularly present in the wood finish and adhesives. These can definitely cause skin irritation and respiratory problems." Ellie and Michael looked at each other, holding the phone with trembling hands. "David, thank you so much," Michael said. "Is there anything we can do?" "I'll create an official report. This shouldn't be sold in the first place. I recommend reporting it to the Consumer Product Safety Commission." After ending the call, they were silent for a while. Tears of anger and sadness welled in Ellie's eyes. "Our family gave Emma poison as a gift," she said in a trembling voice. Michael took her hand. "They didn't mean harm. But now, we need to find out the truth." That night, Natalie contacted them. Her voice was excited. "Ellie, you were right to be suspicious. According to my industry sources, the Elite Sleeper is a brand designed for appearance and prestige, while the actual products are cheaply produced in unlicensed factories in China. They're using connections to bypass safety standards." "But how? American safety standards are supposed to be strict, aren't they?" Ellie asked in confusion. "That's the problem. They've reclassified their products as high-end furniture to avoid the rigorous testing required for children's items. Plus, they provide free samples to celebrities for promotion and pressure to keep problems from surfacing." Ellie trembled with anger. "So other babies are at risk too?" With a determined expression, she opened social media and posted about her experience and warning. However, hours later, the post was deleted. Instead, a warning email from Elite Sleeper's legal department had arrived in her inbox. Ellie shuddered at the message, "Spreading false claims about our product constitutes defamation." That weekend, Vanessa and their parents visited Ellie's home as planned. Ellie opened the door while holding Emma, greeting them with a tense smile. "Emma, you've grown so much." Carol reached for her granddaughter. "Let me hold her." Ellie handed her daughter to her mother and led the family to the living room. But Vanessa's eyes immediately went to the new baby crib in the corner of the room. "What's this?" She raised an eyebrow. "Where's the crib we gave you?" Ellie took a deep breath. "I have something to talk to you about." As she began to explain the issues with the baby crib, her mother's expression gradually hardened. When Ellie talked about the test results, Vanessa folded her arms and snorted. "You're just being too neurotic," Vanessa said coldly. "Babies are sensitive. Thousands of babies use that crib, and I've never heard of any problems." "Is that really so?" Ellie countered. "Because information is being deliberately suppressed." Carol sighed. "Elizabeth, in our day we didn't worry about these chemicals. You young parents worry too much about everything." Ellie tried to control her anger. "Mom, this isn't about being overly worried. Emma actually showed a reaction. She got a rash and started coughing. Thomas spoke for the first time. If there really is a problem, it's worth investigating, isn't it? Thomas. Carol looked accusingly at her husband. Are you taking her side too? The argument heated up, and when Carol criticized, your parenting is too perfectionist, Ellie finally exploded. Are you prioritizing appearances over your child's health? She said with a trembling voice. This bed is making Emma sick. A tense silence filled the room. At that moment, Michael returned from work. He sensed the atmosphere and immediately understood the situation. Everyone, let me demonstrate, Michael said quietly. He brought out the Elite Sleeper and placed it in the center of the living room. Can I hold Emma? He asked Carol. Carol hesitantly handed her granddaughter to him. Michael brought Emma close to the crib, and as everyone watched, red spots began to appear on Emma's skin, and she started to cough. He immediately moved the baby away. I can't believe it, Thomas said with a shocked expression. Rachel and Natalie arrived just at that moment. Natalie opened her laptop and showed the family the evidence she had gathered. This is consumer fraud, Natalie explained. Products sold at high prices for their attractive design, but they don't meet safety standards. Carol was speechless and sat down on the sofa. Thomas shook his head bitterly. To think we gave such a thing to our granddaughter. But Vanessa still didn't seem convinced. What happens to me if this goes public? I recommended it on Instagram. Ellie felt desperate at those words. You still care about appearances? More than Emma's health? Of course not. Vanessa retorted, but couldn't meet her eyes. Ellie picked up Emma and showed strong determination. I choose my daughter's safety over family appearances. And for other babies' sake too, I intend to reveal the truth. It was clear that a deep rift had formed in the family. Thomas had begun to show understanding for Ellie's opinion, but Carol and Vanessa were turning away in fear of embarrassment. Ellie made up her mind, preparing for the difficult battle ahead. The fight to protect truth and safety had begun. The next morning, Ellie woke up to a notification sound on her smartphone. Looking at the screen, she saw an Instagram post from Vanessa. A weekend that made me think about the importance of family connections. Sadly, some people can't understand the value of luxury items. #family bonds #misunderstood. Ellie sighed. After yesterday's confrontation, Vanessa and her mother had left in anger. Only her father Thomas had gently patted her shoulder before leaving, quietly saying, I'll look into it. You okay? Michael came in from the kitchen and offered coffee. Vanessa has started throwing shade on social media, Ellie handed him the phone. Michael scrolled through the screen and frowned. Look at the comments section. Your friends are supporting you. Indeed, several of Ellie's friends had commented. Even Rachel had written, safety should be the priority. Ellie put down her phone and renewed her determination while preparing Emma's milk. If I stay quiet, other babies will be at risk. That afternoon, Ellie posted a question in her local mothers group chat about the safety of baby products. She didn't mention specific brand names, instead raising the topic as a general discussion about safety of design-oriented luxury baby products. The response was surprisingly large. She found that many mothers had similar concerns. One woman revealed, my child also developed a rash from a luxury brand product, and another shared rumors that some companies forge safety certificates. As Ellie was preparing dinner, her smartphone rang. It was an email from an unknown number. Ms. Elizabeth Clayton, this is the legal department of Elite Sleeper Company. Spreading false information about our products constitutes defamation and business obstruction. Please contact us urgently regarding this matter. Her hands trembled. Michael placed his hand on her shoulder and said, don't be afraid. You're doing the right thing. The next day, Ellie and Michael filed a formal complaint with the Consumer Safety Agency. They attached David's test results and the evidence Natalie had gathered. The procedure was easier than expected, but the official warned, the investigation will take time. A few days later, Rachel called. "Why don't we hold a workshop tomorrow at the mothers group about baby product safety? Natalie says she'll speak as an expert." "Really?" Ellie was surprised. "I'm a bit scared after getting warning emails from the manufacturer." "That's exactly why it's important," Rachel said strongly. "They want to silence you. But you're not alone." The workshop was held at the local community center, and more mothers gathered than expected. Natalie explained about safety standards for children's products, and Ellie shared her experience as a consumer. She avoided specific brand names, using the general term luxury baby crib. "What I want to say is the importance of not judging by price or appearance alone, but investigating safety on your own," she concluded. However, during the presentation, the door opened and Vanessa entered with an angry expression. "How dare you do this?" Vanessa said with a trembling voice. "You're ruining the family's reputation." As the venue fell silent, Ellie took a deep breath. "Vanessa, let's not discuss this here." "I'll show everyone," Vanessa persisted. "That my sister is just being too neurotic." Ellie looked at Michael. He nodded slightly and stood up, holding Emma. "I'll show you evidence," Ellie said quietly, signaling to Michael. He took out a prepared sample piece of the Elite Sleeper from his bag and brought it near Emma. Immediately, a reaction began to appear on the baby's skin. The audience gasped. "This is not an act," Ellie said to the participants. "As mothers, it's our duty to protect our children's safety. Even if our family doesn't understand." She looked at Vanessa. Her sister's face showed anger, confusion, and a little shame. "Are you really saying you're selling products that endanger babies?" Vanessa lowered her voice. "What I'm saying is that we shouldn't prioritize appearances over safety," Ellie answered gently. The meeting caught the eye of a local news reporter, and a short feature was included in the next morning's news. Ellie's interview was included. 3 days later, a press release announced that the Consumer Safety Agency had begun investigating Elite Sleeper. A week later, the manufacturer announced a voluntary product recall for quality improvement. Learning this, Ellie felt a sense of achievement but also deep fatigue. She had won, but could her relationship with her family be repaired? As Ellie sat on her home porch, she had an unexpected visitor. It was her mother, Carol. "May I come in?" she asked in a smaller voice than usual. Ellie nodded. Carol sat on the sofa and after a moment of silence said, "You were right." "Mom." Ellie searched for words. "No, listen. I was wrong. I'm sorry for criticizing your parenting. You are, truly a good mother, Elizabeth." Ellie took her mother's hand. Tears welled in her eyes. That night, Michael embraced Ellie in the kitchen and whispered, "You did the right thing. You're the best mother." Looking at Emma's sleeping face, Ellie thought that the rift with her family would heal with time. And most importantly, she had no regrets about trusting her instincts and standing up to protect her daughter. 6 months later, Ellie invited her family to her home garden. Brunch was prepared on the table, and Emma, now a year and a half old and beginning to toddle, played energetically under the shade of morning glories. "I have something to tell everyone," Ellie stood up with a glass in hand. The entire family, Michael, her parents, and Vanessa, focused on her. "We're expecting our second child." Cheers erupted, and Carol hugged her daughter. "Congratulations, Elizabeth." Thomas patted Michael's back with misty eyes. Over the past 6 months, family relationships had gradually been repaired. Elite Sleeper eventually recalled all products and announced new models that complied with safety standards. They never publicly acknowledged the previous issues, but it became a significant lesson within the industry. "Look at this," Vanessa showed her smartphone to Ellie. Once filled with luxury brand posts, her Instagram now featured hashtags like practical choices and child safety. "At the store, I now only deal with products that have received safety certification," she said, looking a bit embarrassed. After that incident, she temporarily lost her influence on social media. But now she had found a new direction. "That's wonderful, Vanessa," Ellie said sincerely. Carol sat with Emma on her lap and said, "Safety is more important than appearances." She still occasionally reverted to old habits, but now prioritized her grandchild's health. After lunch, Thomas called Ellie aside. "Your courageous action was right," he admitted candidly for the first time. "I should have stood by you sooner." "It's okay, Dad," Ellie gently squeezed her father's arm. "Family isn't always perfect. But we can learn from each other." That evening, Rachel came to visit. She and Natalie continued their awareness campaign about baby product safety, and Ellie's brave action had influenced many families. "You've saved many babies' lives," Rachel said, hugging Ellie. "You should be proud." After Michael put their daughter to bed, he sat with Ellie on the porch swing. As the twilight sky turned red, Ellie felt a peaceful satisfaction. "It was tough," Michael said, holding her hand. "Confronting family was painful," Ellie answered honestly. "But I'm glad I stood up for my child's safety." In the bedroom, Ellie gazed down at the sleeping Emma. Her daughter slept peacefully in a safe wooden crib. Space for the second baby was already prepared next to it. From this experience, Ellie learned the importance of trusting her instincts as a mother. And that sometimes, even if it means confronting those you love most, you need the courage to speak up for your children. In the moonlight streaming through the window, Ellie gently placed her hand on her stomach. A new life was growing. She was ready to stand up to protect her children in any situation. Because that's what a mother's unwavering love is all about. The Brown family's two-story house in a beautiful suburban neighborhood of Richmond symbolized a perfect family from the outside. With its red brick exterior, white window frames, well-maintained lawn, and colorful flower beds, neighbors considered it a picture-perfect home in every season. Elizabeth Brown sighed deeply as she looked at the high school student files spread across the kitchen island counter. A woman of delicate beauty and gentleness, she had worked as a counselor at Albert High School for over 10 years and earned tremendous trust from her students. "Stop bringing students' casework home," Richard Brown's low, grave voice interrupted her thoughts. Richard was a leading real estate developer in the area, respected in the community for his career and charisma. Standing over 6 feet tall, his presence stood out in any room. He wore expensive suits with ease and exuded the confidence of a successful man. "I'm just preparing for tomorrow's meetings," Elizabeth answered with a smile. "I'll put them away soon." Richard leaned against the kitchen counter, holding a glass of whiskey. "You're too kind. You sacrifice too much of your time for those troubled kids." Elizabeth said nothing. Richard never tried to understand why she cared so deeply for the students he called troubled.
Can you imagine making $10,000 a month just from YouTube, all from home? That's exactly what I did with Reddit Stories. No face, no voice. Check the link in the description if you're curious.
"Where's Olivia?" Richard asked. "In her room. I think she's doing homework." Richard frowned. "Shut away again. She's been acting strange lately. Go check her room." Elizabeth frowned. "She might be busy right now. And she's a 15-year-old girl. She needs privacy too." "There's no privacy in this house," Richard's voice was cold, leaving no room for discussion. "Go check on her." Elizabeth nodded silently, putting away her papers and choosing to obey to avoid an argument with her husband. She had long believed that maintaining peace in the home was her responsibility. Olivia's door was closed. Elizabeth knocked gently. Olivia? May I come in? When there was no response, she opened the door quietly. In the dimly lit room, Olivia was lying on her bed. Wearing a plain, simple t-shirt and sweatpants, she was looking at her smartphone but immediately darkened the screen when her mother entered. Are you okay? Elizabeth asked worriedly. Instead of answering, Olivia curled up. Her long brown hair covered her face, hiding her expression. My stomach hurts. Elizabeth sat on the edge of her daughter's bed. Again? That's the third day. Do you have a fever? She reached out to touch Olivia's forehead, but her daughter pulled away. No fever. I just don't feel well. What about food? Do you want to eat something? I could heat up some soup. Olivia shook her head slightly. Not hungry. Elizabeth looked around the room. The walls that were once decorated with bright colors and photos of friends were now bare. Her once cheerful and outgoing daughter had changed into someone else entirely in recent months. Her grades had dropped, she no longer spent time with friends, and she stayed shut in her room at home. How was your English test last week? Got a C, Olivia answered vaguely. A C? You always got A's in English. What happened? Don't know. Just couldn't concentrate. Elizabeth felt Olivia's body tense as Richard's footsteps echoed in the hallway. He stood in the doorway with his arms crossed. Saying she's sick again. Irritation seeped into his voice. Elizabeth looked up at Richard. Her stomach hurts. It's been going on for days now. Teenage make-believe, Richard said callously. She just wants attention. Don't use illness as an excuse for your falling grades. Richard, she really. Enough, he cut off his wife's words. Don't coddle her. When I was her age, I didn't miss school even when I had a fever. Teach her toughness. Olivia remained silent, facing the wall. Elizabeth placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder, but Olivia didn't move. You're going to school tomorrow. Understood. Richard commanded. Olivia just nodded slightly. After Richard left the room, Elizabeth gently stroked her daughter's hair. If you're really worried, I can take you to the doctor. Dad won't allow it, Olivia's voice trembled. Then. Elizabeth searched for words. We could go secretly. Olivia finally looked at her mother. Her eyes were empty, their former sparkle gone. It's okay. It's just a stomachache. Deep down, Elizabeth felt this wasn't just a stomachache. It was something in her daughter's eyes, an unspeakable sadness and fear. But she couldn't see the cause. You can tell me anything, Elizabeth whispered. There's nothing to tell, Olivia turned away. Leave me alone. Elizabeth left the room with heavy steps. Downstairs, Richard had turned on the television and started watching the news. He had entered Olivia's life 5 years ago when she was only 10. After Elizabeth's former husband Daniel died in a car accident, Richard offered them stability and protection. 2 years later, he formally adopted Olivia, becoming her legal father. The relationship had been good at the beginning. But something began to change. It started with small changes: Olivia's rebellious attitude, Richard's increasing strictness. Elizabeth thought it was just a rite of passage through adolescence. But now, her intuition told her something more serious was lurking beneath the surface. When she entered the living room, Richard gave her a cold look. Don't take her to any doctor. It's a waste of money. Don't use insurance for such make-believe illnesses. Elizabeth nodded quietly. The next morning, Elizabeth watched from the living room window as Olivia boarded the school bus. Her shoulders were slumped, and fatigue emanated from her entire body. She hadn't eaten breakfast, and her face remained pale. I wonder if forcing her to go to school was really the right thing to do, Elizabeth muttered to herself. Of course it was, Richard said, appearing behind her. Already dressed in his business suit, he was ready to leave for work. If you coddle her, she'll always remain weak. Toughness requires strictness. Elizabeth nodded silently. She knew that questioning her husband's disciplinary philosophy would lead to a lengthy argument. Richard was about to leave for a 3-day business trip, so at least the house would be quiet during that time. Keep a close eye on Olivia while I'm gone. Always know what she's doing, Richard emphasized before leaving. Don't forget to check her phone. Elizabeth felt a slight disgust but answered, "Yes, I understand." She had always felt uncomfortable with Richard interfering with Olivia's privacy, but she had partly gone along with it under the pretext of parental responsibility. After Richard left, Elizabeth headed to her workplace, Albert High School. Waiting for her in the counseling office was her colleague and close friend, Sarah Martinez. "Elizabeth, you look terrible," Sarah said worriedly. "Another all-nighter with casework?" Elizabeth managed a tired smile. "No, I'm worried about Olivia." They moved to the back of the office where other staff couldn't hear them. Elizabeth confided in Sarah about Olivia's behavior over the past few months, declining grades, thinning friendships, and especially the concerning recurring illnesses. "Richard says it's just make-believe. He won't even let me take her to a doctor." Sarah's expression darkened. "What? That's strange. It's about her health. He calls it a waste of money. But I think Olivia is really sick. Nausea, stomach pain, loss of appetite, and more than anything, there's no light in her eyes." Sarah took Elizabeth's hands. "Listen, Elizabeth. You've helped hundreds of children as a counselor. But it's strange that you can't help your own daughter now. A child's health comes first. You should act on your own judgment." Tears welled up in Elizabeth's eyes. Sarah's words expressed the voice deep within her own heart. "Without Richard's permission." "Elizabeth," Sarah said with a serious expression. "Richard's away on a business trip, right? That's your best chance. Take Olivia to the hospital. As a mother, that's your right and duty." That afternoon, Elizabeth called Olivia's school and had her dismissed early, citing illness. "Mom? What's going on?" Olivia looked surprised to see Elizabeth waiting at the school's main entrance. "We're going to the doctor," Elizabeth said with determination. Olivia anxiously looked around. "But Dad. Dad's on a business trip. And your health comes first." Something flickered in Olivia's eyes for a moment, but quickly disappeared. She nodded silently and got into her mother's car. Elizabeth drove not to the local hospital but to St. Joseph Medical Center in the next town. She wanted to avoid the risk of being seen by Richard's acquaintances. Her hands trembled slightly as she presented her insurance card at the reception. "Miss Brown, what are your symptoms?" Dr. Nancy Chen, a young female physician, asked Olivia kindly. Olivia looked at her mother. "Mom. I'd like to talk to the doctor alone." Elizabeth flinched momentarily. Pain that her daughter was trying to exclude her and anxiety that there was something she couldn't say squeezed her heart. However, she understood the importance of respecting her daughter's wishes. "Of course," Elizabeth smiled. "I'll wait outside." Alone in the waiting room, Elizabeth couldn't calm her racing heart. Various possibilities crossed her mind about what Olivia might be telling the doctor and why she couldn't speak in front of her mother. Drugs? Alcohol? Or, she tried to push away the frightening possibilities that came to mind. 45 minutes later, the examination room door opened. Dr. Nancy's expression was stern, and Olivia's eyes were red as if she had been crying. "Mrs. Brown," Dr. Nancy addressed Elizabeth. "I need to speak with you. Your daughter needs some tests. I'd like to conduct several tests today, if that's all right with you." Elizabeth couldn't hide her distress. "Tests? What kind of tests?" "Blood tests and..." The doctor paused a moment as if choosing her words. An ultrasound. Ultrasound? An ominous feeling spread through Elizabeth's chest. Is it something serious? Dr. Nancy maintained her professional expression. I can't say anything until we see the test results. We'll have the results by tomorrow. Could you come back tomorrow evening? Elizabeth looked at Olivia. Her daughter was staring at the floor, silently crying. Of course, Elizabeth answered. Whatever my daughter needs. A heavy silence hung between them in the car on the way home after the tests. Elizabeth tried to speak several times but couldn't find the words. Mom, Olivia suddenly spoke. Her voice was trembling. I'm scared. Elizabeth pulled the car to the shoulder for a moment. Then she hugged her daughter tightly. It's all right, Olivia. Whatever happens, I'm here for you. We'll get through this together. Olivia sobbed in her mother's arms. As Elizabeth rubbed her daughter's back, she mentally prepared herself for whatever truth would be revealed tomorrow. She was determined to be strong for her daughter, no matter how painful the truth might be. When they returned home, Olivia immediately shut herself in her room. As Elizabeth prepared dinner, she thought about how they needed to go to the hospital and return before Richard came back tomorrow. The next afternoon, Elizabeth ended her last counseling session at Albert High School. The clock showed 3:45. Richard will call at 5. I need to be back from the hospital and at home with Olivia by then, she thought anxiously as she grabbed her bag. Elizabeth, Sarah stopped her. Are you okay? Elizabeth exhaled shallowly. I don't know. But we're about to find out the truth. Whatever happens, I'm here for you, Sarah embraced her shoulder. Call if you need anything. I'll come right away. Elizabeth nodded gratefully. Then she hurried to the parking lot. At the school's main entrance, she saw Olivia already waiting. She looked even paler than yesterday, her shoulders slumped. Once in the car, Olivia stared silently out the window. Elizabeth wanted to say something but couldn't find the right words. Instead, she quietly started the car. When they arrived at the St. Joseph Medical Center parking lot, Elizabeth could hear Olivia's breathing grow ragged. She parked the car and turned off the engine. But neither of them moved to get out. Olivia, Elizabeth turned quietly toward her daughter. I don't know what's happening. But I promise you one thing. No matter what, I love you and I'll protect you. We'll get through this together. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. Instead, she just nodded slightly. Inside the hospital was bright white, with the smell of disinfectant in the air. After checking in, they were escorted to Dr. Nancy Chen's office. The doctor stood up with a serious expression when she saw them. Mrs. Brown, Mississippi. Please sit down, she indicated chairs on the other side of her desk. A strange tension hung in the examination room. Dr. Nancy stared at her computer screen in silence for a few seconds. Then, after taking a deep breath, she turned to Olivia and Elizabeth. The test results are in, Dr. Nancy said quietly. Her voice had the typical calmness of a physician, but clear concern showed in her eyes. After looking at Olivia's blood tests and ultrasound results together, she hesitated for a moment. In your stomach. Elizabeth's heart began to race. Time seemed to stop. Olivia is pregnant. About 12 weeks along. The sound of blood rushing roared in Elizabeth's ears. A cry escaped her lips, seeming to come from so far away she barely recognized it herself. No. That's. She couldn't find words. Olivia covered her face with both hands, bent forward, and broke down crying. Elizabeth automatically put her arms around her daughter, but she herself was trembling. I understand how you feel, Dr. Nancy said quietly. This is an extremely difficult situation. Olivia is only 15. In Elizabeth's mind, countless questions whirled. How? When? And the most terrifying question, who? Who? Elizabeth forced out from the back of her throat. Who did this to you? Olivia couldn't answer, just kept crying. Dr. Nancy stood up and said quietly, "Let's talk in another room. A nurse will stay with Olivia." Elizabeth nodded vaguely. Though she didn't want to leave Olivia, she understood the need to calm down. A nurse entered the examination room and gently placed her hand on Olivia's shoulder. Elizabeth stood up weakly and followed Dr. Nancy. Entering a small consultation room, the doctor closed the door and faced Elizabeth. "First, take a deep breath," she said quietly. Elizabeth did as told, inhaling a shaky breath. "In situations like this, there are various options," Dr. Nancy continued. "There's still time, but whatever choice you make, Olivia's mental care takes priority." Elizabeth finally found her voice. "I don't understand. She hardly goes out. She didn't have a boyfriend. Just back and forth between school and home." "Mrs. Brown," Dr. Nancy's voice softened. "In my conversation with Olivia, a very concerning situation has come to light. I've called in a social worker. She needs to talk with Olivia in more detail." Elizabeth's blood ran cold. A social worker? Why? Olivia's situation. The doctor seemed to be choosing her words. May involve legal issues. Legal. Elizabeth repeated the word. And suddenly, a horrifying possibility arose in her mind. Was Olivia raped? Her voice trembled. Dr. Nancy didn't answer directly. "Social worker Tracy Williams has arrived. After she speaks with Olivia, we'll talk, the three of us." Elizabeth was left in the consultation room with trembling legs. 10 minutes felt like an hour. In her mind, various terrifying possibilities appeared and disappeared. Thinking about the fear and loneliness Olivia might have experienced was heartbreaking. The door was knocked on, and a woman entered. She introduced herself with a calm expression. "Mrs. Brown, I'm Tracy Williams. I'm a social worker with Child Protective Services." "Olivia?" Elizabeth asked with a trembling voice. "She's with Dr. Nancy. She's safe." Tracy encouraged her to sit down. "Mrs. Brown, what I'm about to tell you is very difficult. You'll need your strength." Elizabeth nodded firmly. "I spoke with Olivia. At first, she didn't want to talk. But I explained that we needed to know the truth for her safety and to provide appropriate support," Tracy said quietly. "Olivia says she has been sexually abused for about a year." "For a year?" Elizabeth's expression showed disbelief. "By whom? A teacher? A coach?" Tracy exhaled deeply. "Your husband, Richard Brown." Elizabeth's world collapsed. She shook her head violently. "No. That's a lie. Richard is her father. He even adopted her. He wouldn't do such a thing." "Mrs. Brown," Tracy said quietly but firmly. "In our experience, it's very rare for children to lie about such serious allegations. Especially when they can provide detailed explanations." "But..." Elizabeth's voice was hoarse. "Why didn't Olivia tell me?" "Olivia did tell us. She was afraid of hurting you. She said Richard threatened that if she spoke, it would hurt her mother, and that no one would believe her." Tracy's voice was gentle. "Furthermore, she herself didn't want to break the family." Intense pain shot through Elizabeth's chest. Guilt for failing to protect her daughter and anger toward her husband overwhelmed her. Her body was shaking uncontrollably. "We need to report this to the police now," Tracy said. "Ensuring Olivia's safety is the top priority. Richard is on a business trip. He's coming back tomorrow," Elizabeth answered mechanically. That's good, Tracy said. You and Olivia need to move to a safe place. Do you have relatives or trusted friends you could stay with? Sarah's face appeared in Elizabeth's mind. Yes, I do. Excellent, Tracy smiled gently. A police officer will record statements from you and Olivia. After that, you'll move to a safe location. Meanwhile, an arrest warrant for Richard will be issued. Though Elizabeth's mind was in chaos, one thing was clear. She had to protect Olivia. Now that she knew her husband's true nature, all her maternal instincts had awakened to protect her daughter. Let me see Olivia, she stood up. Tracy opened the door and escorted Elizabeth to Dr. Nancy's examination room. Olivia sat in a chair, her eyes red and swollen. When Elizabeth entered, Olivia shrank back fearfully. Olivia. Elizabeth said with a trembling voice. I'm sorry. Mom couldn't protect you. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes again. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared. Elizabeth rushed over and hugged her daughter tightly. They cried in each other's arms. For a long time, no words were necessary. That embrace contained all their love, apologies, and understanding. It's going to be okay now, Elizabeth whispered as she stroked her daughter's hair. I won't let anyone hurt you anymore. Mom will definitely protect you. Elizabeth woke up in the guest room of Sarah's house. For a moment, she didn't know where she was, but seeing Olivia sleeping beside her, she remembered yesterday's events were real. She quietly got up and looked around the room where morning sunlight streamed through the window. The hours at the police station had been like a nightmare. Olivia's testimony was recorded, and Elizabeth herself kept answering questions. About the details of life with Richard, changes in Olivia's behavior, and the signs she had missed, or refused to notice. I should have seen it, Elizabeth whispered to herself. Why didn't I notice? Don't blame yourself. Turning around, she saw Sarah standing in the doorway. She approached with 2 coffee cups. Thanks for being up so early, Elizabeth said as she accepted a cup. Did you sleep? Sarah asked gently. Elizabeth shook her head. Just fragments. But Olivia seemed exhausted. She's sleeping soundly. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed. The police called. Richard was arrested in Chicago, where he was on his business trip, this morning. Elizabeth took a deep breath. I'll tell Olivia later. She still needs rest. Sarah's expression clouded. There's one more thing. When the police searched Richard's belongings, they found inappropriate photos of Olivia on his mobile phone. The blood drained from Elizabeth's face. Her hands shook, nearly dropping the coffee cup. Those photos, when were they taken? The police didn't give details, but apparently they span quite a long period, Sarah answered quietly. A long silence followed. In Elizabeth's heart, a flame of anger was growing. Her affection for Richard had transformed into guilt for not protecting her daughter and intense hatred toward him. Why didn't I notice? Elizabeth asked herself again. I'm a counselor. I deal with children's problems every day. Families of victims often don't notice until the end, Sarah answered. Especially when the perpetrator is respected and trusted. Richard was a role model in the community. No one suspected. That afternoon, Detective Carter visited Sarah's house. A middle-aged black man with a calm but firm demeanor. Mrs. Brown, he addressed Elizabeth. The interrogation of suspect Richard Brown has begun. He is currently denying all charges. Elizabeth couldn't contain her anger. Despite the evidence. Despite Olivia's testimony and the photos. This is a normal response, Detective Carter explained calmly. However, the evidence is very strong. DNA testing will also be conducted. Olivia came downstairs. She seemed tense seeing the detective but sat next to Elizabeth. Dad. Richard. Olivia asked in a small voice. He's been arrested, Elizabeth took her daughter's hand. He can't hurt you anymore. Detective Carter smiled kindly at Olivia. Miss Olivia, you are very brave. It took great courage to tell the truth. Thanks to you, justice will prevail. Olivia raised her face slightly. In her eyes, a light that hadn't been seen for a long time began to return. Have you learned anything about Richard's motives from the interrogation? Elizabeth asked in a trembling voice. Detective Carter took a deep breath. It's still early, but his behavior pattern shows typical characteristics of a controller. He seems to have used his position as a stepfather to satisfy his sense of ownership and desire to control Olivia. The detective continued, also, initial interviews with a psychologist suggest that the suspect had strong jealousy toward Olivia's biological father. It's possible that as Olivia entered puberty and began to resemble her real father, it triggered him. Elizabeth couldn't stop trembling. She was beginning to understand what kind of man she had chosen and trusted. Richard's controlling attitude, excessive interference with Olivia, unnecessary criticism of her former husband, everything now appeared in a new light. What do we do now? Elizabeth said as if telling herself. As next steps, Detective Carter explained in a practical tone, I recommend applying for a protection order and starting divorce proceedings. It's also important for you and Olivia to receive professional counseling. Elizabeth looked at Olivia. About the pregnancy. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes again. Detective Carter quietly stood up, saying, I'll step out for a moment, and left the room with Sarah. When mother and daughter were alone, Elizabeth took both of Olivia's hands. Whatever choice you make, I'm on your side. Remember that. Olivia answered through tears, I don't want to have the baby. Every day. I would remember. Elizabeth hugged her daughter tightly. I understand. I respect your choice. That night, after Olivia had fallen asleep, Elizabeth sat across from Sarah in the kitchen. I can't go back to the house, Elizabeth said quietly. There, everything reminds me of Richard. You can stay here for a while, Sarah held her friend's hand. Until you take your next step. Determination shone in Elizabeth's eyes. Olivia and I need a fresh start. It will take time for her wounds to heal. But we'll get through this together. Sarah nodded. You're a strong mother, Elizabeth. There will be many difficult things ahead. The trial will be painful too. But you and Olivia will surely build a new life. On a cold February morning, Elizabeth and Olivia climbed the courthouse steps. Today was Richard Brown's final sentencing day. Ready? Elizabeth asked, holding her daughter's hand. Olivia nodded. Since that day 4 months ago, she had gradually changed. She had received professional counseling, participated in support groups, and above all, the new bond built with her mother had supported her. Inside the courtroom, all was quiet. When Richard was brought to the defendant's seat, Elizabeth saw him for the first time in months. The husband who had once been full of dignity and confidence was gone. Instead, there was a man with a haggard face and empty eyes. Richard had initially denied all charges. However, Olivia's DNA test confirmed his paternity, and the photos and messages discovered on his phone were irrefutable evidence. After the preliminary hearing, he eventually agreed to a plea deal. Still, Olivia chose to testify in court. She wanted to give courage to other children in similar situations by sharing her experience. Defendant, Richard James Brown, Judge Margaret Saunders said in a solemn voice. You have pleaded guilty to sexual abuse of a minor, possession of child pornography, and incest. The judge looked sternly at Richard. This is an extremely despicable crime that has inflicted permanent wounds on the victim's life. Your act of using your position and authority to abuse a child you should have protected deserves the harshest condemnation. A heavy silence fell over the courtroom. This court sentences you to 25 years in prison. Possibility of parole begins after 18 years. Elizabeth embraced Olivia's shoulders. Between them flowed relief and a sense that one chapter had ended. Outside the courthouse, spring sunshine greeted them. 3 weeks ago, they had left this town and moved to a small town called Cedarville, 100 miles away. Elizabeth had secured a position as a counselor at a local school, and Olivia had begun attending a new school. "Mom," Olivia suddenly said. "I want to speak at the support group. About my experience." Elizabeth looked at her daughter in surprise. "Really? That's a very brave decision." Olivia smiled slightly. "It might help someone." The counselor said silence only protects the perpetrator. Elizabeth hugged her daughter. Her heart was filled with pride and love. This past year had been hellish for them, but through that suffering, their bond had grown stronger than ever. As they got into the car, Elizabeth thought, a true family isn't about blood relations, but about relationships where people protect and respect each other. The road ahead would certainly not be smooth. But they would move forward together, one step at a time. Toward a new life.